Bill Gates, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
It's great to be on.
Let's jump straight into the first question that everybody would want me to ask. You delivered a TED Talk where you predicted pretty much what is happening now. Now, thanks to the world we live in, that has sprouted a bunch of conspiracy theories, everything from Bill Gates invented this virus to prove himself right, or he knew it was going to happen and that's why he said it. Was that TED Talk about this virus, or was that a hypothetical that has now come true?
Well, I didn't know specifically that it'd be coronavirus and that it would hit in late 2019. But the goal of the talk was to encourage governments to make the investments so we could respond very quickly and keep the case numbers very, very low. And so sadly, this is not a case where, I feel like, hey, I told you so. Because we didn't use that time when it was clear as the biggest threat to kill millions of people to have the diagnostic standing by, to be ready to ramp up a vaccine factory. A few things were done. Some countries, our foundation funded some work that will help with the vaccines now, will help with the diagnostics, but most of what was called for, particularly in a New England Journal of Medicine article I did that went into way more specifics than I could in a short TED Talk, those things didn't get done, and so that's why it's taking us a long time to get our act together faced with this threat.
Here's a question I have. As an individual, how is it that you as a non-government knew this information and knew that it needed to be acted on, and governments and organizations that are specifically tasked with protecting people from this very thing either didn't have the information or ignored it? What do you think happened there? Because I know you interact with governments, you talk to organizations like the CDC, like the WHO. What went wrong?
Well, there are lots of individuals who were as worried as I was. People like Dr. Fauci, who've been through various epidemics. And so when we had Ebola, Zika, SARS, MERS, we were lucky that they didn't transmit very easily. They weren't these respiratory viruses where somebody who's not very symptomatic and is still walking around can spread the disease in some cases to literally dozens of people. So the respiratory transmission, particularly because world travel is so intense, that's where I show the simulation in that speech and say, this keeps me up at night more than even war, which is no small thing. And yet, in terms of being systematic about, okay, let's run a simulation and see how would we reach out to the private sector for tests or ventilators, and what kind of quarantine would we do? As we enter into this, we haven't practiced at all. And so you can see it's, every state is being forced to figure things out on their own. And it's very ad hoc. It's not like when a war comes and we've done, 20 simulations of various types of threats, and we've made sure that the training, communications, logistics, all those pieces fall into place very rapidly.
You are in an interesting position where in many ways you are an expert on this topic because of the work that you now do in philanthropy. Your goal has been to eradicate malaria across the globe, focusing in Africa. You work with infectious disease, you work with experts in and around infectious disease. When you look at the coronavirus as it stands now, it's happened, leaders acted late, but what do you think needs to be done going forward? You wrote an interesting op-ed about this, but what do you think we need to do from the ground up, from the people to the leaders to the private sector?
Well, the main tools we have right now are the behavioral change, the social distancing, which often means staying at home most of the time, and the testing capacity to identify who in particular needs to get isolated, and then testing their contacts to make sure that we can catch it so early that a lot of people who get sick don't infect anyone else. Now, so our foundation is engaged in projecting what's going to go on, the modeling. And our partner IHME is, telling each state what they should think about in terms of ventilators and capacity. Further on out, the work we're doing now to find a therapeutic, a drug to reduce the disease, to cut the deaths down, we're hopeful that even in 6 months, some of those will have been approved. But the ultimate solution, the only thing that really lets us go back completely to normal and feel good about sitting in a stadium with lots of other people, is to create a vaccine and not just take care of our country, but take that vaccine out to the global population, and so that we have vast immunity, and this thing, no matter what, isn't going to spread in large numbers.
There are now 900,000 confirmed coronavirus cases around the globe, and what's disturbing is that some countries are experiencing a second wave of the crisis. For instance, in Hong Kong, they successfully social distanced, saw their numbers drop, relaxed their quarantine rules, and now they've been hit with a new wave of infections. Yeah, a new wave of coronavirus. And I feel so bad for these Asian countries, because whether it's coronavirus or Godzilla, every time they think it's gone, it comes back again for another movie. Now, while some Asian countries are dealing with a second wave of coronavirus, other countries are dealing with a wave of their own stupidity. The Malaysian government was forced to apologize after they issued guidelines which told wives that they should not be nagging their husbands too much during quarantine, which is obviously incredibly sexist, but also, people, as stressful as quarantine is, this is not the time for husbands and wives to be fighting each other, all right? Husbands and wives need to come together to fight the true enemy, their kids. Don't let those cute faces fool you. They'll shit right on your lap and laugh while doing it. Meanwhile, back here in the United States, coronavirus cases have now passed the 200,000 mark, and the number of deaths has reached 4,000, doubling in just 3 days. But one thing I love about America is that even in the most difficult times, there are always people who try and find joy.
Neighbors in Buffalo, New York are getting outside. They're having a block party every night, dancing together while keeping their social distance. Looks like fun.
Tell me that's not sweet, huh? I love this for so many reasons. One, it's amazing to see people finding ways to connect with others while keeping their physical distance. And seeing this many white people dancing offbeat, it almost makes me feel like the world is back to normal again. I miss those days. And also, that is my dream party that they were having. Yeah, a party where you can go out on your front step, dance for a little bit, and then when you're ready to leave, all you have to do is turn around and then you're back home. Sign me up.
We've all been quarantined for about 3 weeks now, and let's be honest, it sucks. But the good news is, it works. Countries that have imposed strict social distancing have started seeing their transmission rates drop. And it looks like it's even working here in New York. So that means every single one of us who's staying at home right now is a hero. And you know what happens to heroes? They make movies about them.
Some heroes are called to the battlefield. Some heroes to the sky. When the world is at war.
Breaking overnight at war amid a dramatic increase in coronavirus cases.
The world is at war with a hidden enemy.
A silent army of infection.
The war against coronavirus. America at war.
One hero will put on the uniform and answer the call of duty by staying at home. The fight will not be easy. Supplies will be thin. But when the only way to destroy the enemy is through self-isolation, doing nothing means everything.
Man, I can't wait to watch that in theaters when they reopen in 2024.